The most effective weapons don't just pack devastating firepower. They strike fear into the hearts of the enemy.
Glad I'm not the enemy.
This smart bomb can vaporize an entire armor division with just one drop.
We called it the weapon of 13 consecutive miracles.
This latest machine gun beats the M16 for sheer firepower and accuracy.
Shoot as fast as you can, as long as you hit.
I'm Richard Makowitz. I spent 10 years as a Navy SEAL, and I'm on a mission to find the world's most sinister weapons. Weapons that unleash the power of fear.
How do you stop an 80-ton vehicle designed to mow down anything in its path? Stopping one of these is almost impossible. Imagine the terror of facing a whole column of these mechanical monsters roaring toward you.
This is the nightmare scenario ground troops face. Infantry massively outgunned by tanks without any backup. Cluster bombs and carpet bombing aren't a solution when your men are within striking distance of the enemy.
A new kind of weapon was needed to do the job.
A weapon that could single-handedly shred an entire tank division in seconds.
I wouldn't want to be sitting in the back of a truck or in a tank, loaded with fuel, loaded with ammo, and have hot molten copper shooting through the back of me.
It causes as much psychological damage as its physical impact. They simply call it the sensor-fused weapon.
The sensor-fused weapon is a smart 1,000-pound cluster bomb. It's so lethal the weapon can seek out and destroy dozens of tanks all at one time. It's only been fired once in anger, but the results were absolutely devastating, striking fear way beyond the immediate target. It's one of the smartest bombs ever made. It can strike multiple targets over an area of 360 acres. That's over 16 football fields. And today I'm going to witness this lethal weapon in action.
Man, that is the last place you ever want to be, right there.
I'm heading to Eglin Air Force Base in Florida, where the sensor-fused weapon is being tested and evaluated for combat. Getting access has taken months of negotiations with the military.
Morning, sir.
Yes, sir. Get ready, car?
Yes, sir.
This is a highly restricted area, but I've been granted exclusive clearance.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, have a nice day.
Take care.
Eglin is one of America's largest bases and a leading test center. Heading the sensor-fused weapons program is Squadron Commander Colonel Richard Mountain.
If you think back World War II, how many airplanes did it take to take out a target? And with SFW, what you're talking about is how many kills each one of these weapons is going to be able to deliver on enemy forces.
And it was during Operation Iraqi Freedom that the SFW was first used in battle. It was so effective, it was only needed once. On the ground, U.S. troops faced a nightmare scenario. They were up against an advancing column of Iraqi tanks. But at 40,000 feet was a bomber ready to answer their prayers. The B-52 bomber dropped 2 SFWs on the head of the tank column, completely decimating it.
The buddies in the back two-thirds saw what just happened to their friends up front, decided it was better to give up than to fight. They raised up their hands and surrendered.
This was a weapon capable of striking fear into the hearts of the enemy. The Marines didn't have to fire a single bullet.
That psychological effect is very important in this weapon.
Coming up, I'm about to see the sensor-fused weapon in action. I'll get to see why it's one of the smartest weapons ever to deliver carnage on the battlefield. In a rare demonstration of the SFW, I'm about to see how one sensor-fused weapon can destroy up to 40 tanks. The F-16 is capable of carrying 4 SFWs. That's enough firepower to single out and destroy 160 heavy artillery vehicles. Flying today's mission is Captain Doug Seymour, chief pilot for the 40th Test Flight Squadron at Eglin. He never imagined a weapon so sophisticated could be produced for the Air Force.
Back in '98, when I was a lieutenant, I was just getting operational F-16. They started talking about this weapon, and we called it the weapon of, I think it was 13 consecutive miracles, because there are so many moving pieces, parts that have to occur in order for this weapon to work as advertised. And we used to think that, there's no way this weapon was going to possibly work, but it actually does.
Developing a weapon this sophisticated has taken scientist Joel Bernstein over 17 years to perfect. It's been a rocky road. The SFW was canceled by the military over 120 times. But Bernstein's persistence paid off with one of the most lethal and intelligent weapons ever created.
The sensor-fused weapon is deployed from its aircraft as far away as 10 miles and 40,000 feet in the air from the target.
The bomb transforms itself in flight, performing a series of extraordinary maneuvers in preparation for its lethal strike. The casing splits apart in midair to release 40 deadly munitions known as skeets. It's these skeets that destroy the targets. Each of these skeets have sensors in them, and they're smart. Once they detect a target, they lock on and destroy it with ruthless efficiency. Today's test firing is part of an ongoing program to boost the performance of the weapon. At a cost of around $1 million, there is no room for mistakes.
Once the weapon impacts, we'll let you know that it functioned and then the mission's complete and our objective has been accomplished for this mission.
Next, the sensor-fused weapon is going to be dropped for a rare live test, and I'll get to see it in action.
It's really pretty brutal.
Then, I'll get to test the world's newest and deadliest assault rifle.
I can sleep quietly now, knowing that this is coming.
In a rare demonstration of the SFW, I'm about to see it destroy an armored column. I'm off to the test site over 20 miles away to see exactly what targets we're going to obliterate.
Hey, LT, you ready to blow the heck out of some tanks?
Yeah, let's go do it. It's a beautiful day for a test down here in Eglin.
Let's go do it.
All right.
Lieutenant Engelmeyer is a lead engineer with the SFW unit. Old vehicles and tanks have been assembled to simulate a battlefield environment.
Well, what kind of tanks you got out here?
We've got some T-80s, T-65s, foreign assets, and there's a total of about 25 targets that we'll be using today.
These stationary targets are being heated to simulate hot engines and friction coming from moving parts. It's these thermal sources that the smart bombs are looking for.
When the first time you heard it go off, what was your gut reaction to it?
Glad I'm not the enemy. You have the rocket motors going and panels popping off the weapon and the slugs going. It's really pretty brutal.
But what kind of range does this weapon have?
It'll basically cover the entire area that we're looking at.
So it's going to start on that end?
That's correct.
And it's going to go all the way to that end?
The CBU will lay down pattern will cover essentially everything that you see out here.
That's crazy.
The results from one bomb is devastating enough. The B-1 bomber can drop up to 30 of them, enough explosives to take out up to 1,200 tanks. So one payload can destroy an entire armored front line. Out at the observation site, engineers are fine-tuning technical gear, which gathers information from the test. Radars will track every movement of the weapon from its release to impact. Back at headquarters, Captain Seymour is gearing up for today's live drop. With a test costing nearly $1 million, there is no room for errors. In just 20 minutes, Seymour will deliver a clear message to the targets below.
And Astro 1, we read you loud and clear.
Seymour's F-16 takes off. It'll only take him 10 minutes to reach the drop zone.
Do you want to be out there?
Right now? No, absolutely not.
Here I'm coming, here he comes.
Seymour will make one cold pass to ensure that the airspace is clear, and then he will lock onto his targets.
And Astro 1, we got a green range for cold pass. Copy that, Astro 1, we're proceeding to hot pass.
It's showtime.
Coming in hot.
2 seconds. Roger, copy, Stephen.
place you ever want to be, right there. Hot, molten copper shooting all over the place. That's like 100,000 claymores going off, just covering the battlefield.
Here's the action replay. When the bomb is released, a pyrotechnic charge peels away the skin like a banana, releasing 10 canisters. The submunitions are dispersed, with parachutes straightening out the canisters in the air. Rocket motors kick in, pulling them up into the sky before the skeets are released in pairs at 30 degrees. The sky is now buzzing with a deadly swarm of skeets, all 40 of them. Each skeet wobbles in flight to allow their infrared and thermal sensors to scan over the ground in a spiral pattern. Then, bingo! They lock onto the target, and an explosive charge fires molten copper into the tanks. If the skeet doesn't find their target, they're designed to self-destruct in midair, leaving a clean battlefield.
And Astro 1, this is Project Weapon Function, mission complete. Astro 1, copy.
That's deadly, that's accurate, that's business.
That's why the SFW is a weapon striking fear into the heart of the enemy. Coming up, I'll get to handle the latest assault rifle that is as accurate as it is deadly.
We thought Americans couldn't shoot. Are you just
This is the world's latest automatic assault rifle, the Tavor. It matches the firepower of the trusted M16 rifle, but it's a whole lot meaner. The state of Israel is no stranger to conflict. Lessons learned in urban warfare have driven the development of many weapons, including this, the latest in automatic assault rifles. It is a weapon that's easier to handle than the M16, yet it is as accurate as a sniper rifle.
Shalom.
I've come to this military installation just outside of Jerusalem to meet the Tavor, the Israeli Army's brand new assault rifle, designed for the soldier of the 21st century. These young cadets are amongst the very first to train with this weapon, and supervising them is Lieutenant Colonel Mikey Hartman, one of the chief advisors on the Tavor's development. He's also a man who talks as fast as he shoots.
Now, the older guys, they're going to be with the M4, the old weapon. And the young guys, they're going to be with the Tavor. That's a problem, because if you're an old guy in the Israeli Army, you get all the good
You want
stuff.
the new toy.
Yeah, you definitely want the new toy. So they're going to have to deal with that, and we're going to try to make sure they don't steal it from the young guys.
The Israelis began developing a smaller weapon that's easier to handle for urban combat, yet would still match the firepower of the M16 machine gun. The man at the head of the design team is Zalman Sheds.
We thought that we can achieve a better rifle than the M16 was.
The M16 was introduced in the 1960s, and after 40 years, it's still in use all around the world.
I like the design. I think the design is very, very smart.
Well, it's a 40-year-old design, too.
Yeah.
It's still in use.
Yeah, that's right. But, you know, Eugene Stoner was quite a genius by this design.
When we were inside of sand, when we were in water, when we were in mud situations, we had a problem with stoppages, the weapon wasn't working. Right. So we had a problem that soldiers would go to battle, and they were not sure that their weapon would work. That was a problem, a very serious problem.
The second problem is that the M16 is a long weapon, which means it's less suitable for close-range combat and shooting around tight corners, exactly what you'd find in urban warfare. The Tavor was designed to solve those two problems. It's a smaller automatic rifle that matches the firepower of the M16, but it's as accurate as a sniper rifle.
Because we're dealing with the territories in Gaza or in Nablus and wherever it may be, we're dealing with close quarters all the time.
Absolutely.
Getting out of a truck, getting out of an armored personnel carrier, going inside of a room.
Exactly.
You have to make the weapon as short as possible. When you shorten the weapon, it makes things a lot easier. Your whole body, your whole silhouette is a lot smaller. Right. Okay? The enemy sees less of you because your weapon is shorter. Good shot. Now I'm going to say right or left, and you hit the one I'm talking about. Left. Right. Well done. You flicked out the target.
It is very balanced. Your hands are a little tighter right here, but it's really light. Back here, the weight is actually put on your shoulders. And because the weight is on your shoulders, you don't have to move around as much. You don't have to, the longer the barrel, the more the tendency is for the your sight picture to kind of just float around a little bit. This is really short, real compact. You can get really tight, and the tighter you can get your muscles, the actually easier it is to hold onto the target.
The reason the weight is at the back is because that's where all the mechanics lie. This means the long barrel can be fitted further back into the weapon so that it doesn't increase its overall length.
The weapon's a lot shorter, but I don't hurt the accuracy.
The Tavor sprays the target with incredible firepower.
The rate of fire is very similar to the M16.
Very fast, at around 15 rounds per second. This rate of fire is essential for urban warfare, where only the quickest survive.
You want to teach the soldiers to shoot quicker. Shoot as fast as you can, as long as you hit.
Unlike the M16, the Tavor has a built-in laser and Mars red dot sight so loved by hundreds of Hollywood action directors. By building the sight into the weapon, the soldier can fire it immediately without having to waste valuable time to line it up.
Firstly, when I open up the safety, it turns on. So I have control over my sight. I don't have to, in the middle of a battle, turn on the sight. I can just turn on the safety.
That's a great feature.
Yeah, that's great. And also saves batteries, by the way.
Exactly.
You don't forget it on by accident. Secondly, it stays zeroed all the time, meaning because it's part of the barrel, as a soldier, he cannot take it off.
As a former sniper myself, I want to see how accurate the Tavor can be.
So try to aim at the head.
Got it.
Okay, unfortunately, my scope is in the car. I can get it and tell you where you're hitting, because basically you got to find out where you're hitting and then fix it.
To really test the sight, the Tavor and myself, Mikey challenged me to hit a head and shoulders target at the maximum end of the Tavor's optimum range, 300 meters.
I just got to make sure I'm hitting.
No, it's a tough shot, and also it may not be zeroed for you perfectly. So
No, I just need to see it. That's all.
you shot incredibly well for 50 meters. Beautiful. Good shot. I wouldn't shoot again either.
What's that?
Stop now. Well done. Well done. Well done. That was good. 300 meters standing up shot. That's beautiful. Now, short weapon, 300 meters standing up. You can't ask for more than that. Good shot. What was good is we thought Americans couldn't shoot. Now you broke that down for us.
Well, you know, every once in a while we get lucky. I just kind of rolled the dice on that one.
I say it's my weapon because it's my
It's your
weapon.
weapon, exactly.
I just love the way this weapon handles.
Since 2000 until now, we have been testing the Tavor and building it and making it better and fixing it and fixing it and making it better. And now in this August of this year, we have about 4 or 5 more months, it's going to go into one of our infantry units. You know, I say to myself, I can sleep quietly now, knowing that this is coming.
Coming up, I examined the threat posed by biological weapons.
The purpose of bioterrorism is to cause fear and panic.
In my journey to seek out future weapons, there's one that creates the most fear.
We primarily rely on our ability to see and hear to survive. The weapons that wield the greatest fear are the ones we can't sense.
Biological weapons are so lethal, they are outlawed under the Geneva Convention. And to date, no country has unleashed the terror of biological warfare. Even so, during the Cold War, the Soviet Union was busy developing them.
Yet the nightmare scenario is a terrorist unleashing a biological weapon in a crowded city.
The unknown, of course, is always the greatest fear factor, not knowing when and where things can appear.
In the wake of 9/11, the unthinkable happened. Florida and Connecticut came under a bioterrorist attack.
If you see an envelope like this that you don't recognize, you might want to be careful.
Anthrax spores were carried by envelopes mailed through the postal system, infecting and sometimes killing anyone who came into contact with the letters. So why did the terrorists choose anthrax?
It's stable in the environment, on top of having an extremely high mortality rate. Those two things make it an extremely effective biological weapon. The death toll from the anthrax attack was mercifully small, with only the loss of 5 lives. But the incident sparked a nationwide panic.
This country is too strong to allow terrorists to affect the lives of our citizens.
The purpose of bioterrorism is to cause fear and panic. So if people, once they're being infected with this disease, are dying horrible deaths, that accomplishes the goals of the terrorists. It sounds like the perfect terrorist weapon, but the battle is already being fought in the lab.
Bioterrorism is a clear and present danger to the free world. So what is being done to defend ourselves? To find out, my first stop was America's leading research center against bioterrorism, the Lawrence Livermore Laboratory. The first thing you need to know is when the attack has started. They've developed an alarm system that literally sniffs out the deadly germs. Thousands of these smart boxes are placed across America in public places such as subways, airports, and shopping centers. But detecting the virus is just the start. It's vital that scientists can then track the spread of it over a city. The emergency services must know where the casualties are going to be concentrated. John Nastrom is one of America's leading experts in atmospheric modeling.
This was an exercise we did in the city of Seattle. This is assuming some dry anthrax powder was released here. It's spread southward, and we can forecast how the cloud's going to grow. So after 2 hours, it's spread farther downwind. So this is the area of concern now for these emergency responders.
In the event of an attack, their computer simulations are key to creating an effective emergency plan.
Within 3 hours, the computer model shows that the cloud will infect around 51,000 people and kill over 1,000 innocent civilians. At the University of Louisville, Kentucky, medical teams are working at ways to reduce the death toll. Lives can be saved if medics treat the patients in time, but anthrax can kill in a matter of hours.
As you know, our patient has just arrived from a building where a number of individuals have been exposed, as we understand, to an aerosol that has been identified as being anthrax.
These training dummies are packed with state-of-the-art technologies that simulate symptoms of anthrax exposure. The computer-controlled dummies are so lifelike that the medics actually forget they're working on mannequins.
We've actually taken some of our portables into emergency rooms, and they have treated them just like real patients. We've had students in here who become so engrossed in what they're doing, they forget that they're in a lab and that it's a mannequin. They act like it is a real patient.
The fatality rate associated with anthrax at this particular stage after exposure is in the range of about 50%.
They start to get treated with antibiotics and supportive oxygen therapy.
The key to fighting this sinister biological weapon lies in recognizing the symptoms early.
Blood oxygen level is rising now, is approaching 90%.
Bioterrorism isn't just limited to anthrax. The terrorist has a whole arsenal of viruses they can get a hold of. Smallpox is one of the deadliest.
Smallpox exists only in laboratories now, the result of a successful campaign by the World Health Organization in the 1970s. But the fall of communism in Russia and the troubles in the Middle East have now made this deadly virus available to bioterrorists, and few people are vaccinated against it.
Since there's no treatment for smallpox and it's easily transmissible from person to person, if there's an outbreak, it's going to spread across the globe in no time.
Using stolen laboratory samples, bioterrorists could use smallpox against the public. So, to defend against this threat, Dr. McKinney trains medics to recognize the symptoms of the disease. He uses elaborate makeup techniques to duplicate the symptoms.
Smallpox actually has lesions that cluster now about the face. These are in about the 3rd day of development now, so she doesn't have a large number of them, but they're all rather uniform in nature.
Smallpox remains one of the worst case scenarios. It's highly contagious, and infection means almost certain death. During the Cold War, the Soviets were developing biological weapons, genetically engineering even more deadly strains. I came face to face with the head of the Soviet germ warfare program, Dr. Ken Alibek. He was told that the West was also developing biological weapons. After the collapse of communism in the early 90s, he saw no reason to continue, unlike his bosses.
I was angry, and I came to my commanders. I said, guys, what we do is absolutely stupid. It's the time to stop. And, you know, you can imagine what started happening. You're a betrayer, you're a traitor. He said, you'll pay for this.
Dr. Alibek defected to America soon after, but as a qualified doctor who was sworn to save lives, didn't he have a problem creating biological weapons?
when you give your oath to help people, not to cause harm, at the same time you do something like this, of course it's a very big dilemma.
Dr. Alibak's answer was to immerse himself in the war against bioterrorism. He is now the chief scientific officer of a leading biotech company in Washington. He is developing a new generation of vaccines that will protect the public against multiple diseases, like smallpox and anthrax, with just one shot. Brian Pickering is part of his team.
In the case of a bioterrorist event, you're not going to know exactly what organism it is. So in this case, it's easier to vaccinate the entire population without increasing the actual number of shots someone is getting.
The forces to defend against a bioterrorist attack are being mobilized. Coming up, I get to see what effect explosives have on the human body and find out what happened when they tested the mother of all bombs.
It was impressive. We were miles away and we heard that thunderous boom.
When it comes to instilling fear, you want a weapon that's so terrifying, its very presence frightens the enemy into submission.
You're facing all-out war, and you don't want to engage your troops. You can't go nuclear, but you want the same destructive power without the radioactive fallout. What do?
To obliterate a big target like a military base usually means dropping hundreds of bombs from dozens of planes. But it's indiscriminate and kills innocent civilians as well as the target.
There is a solution. It's one of the most destructive weapons ever created.
What's needed is a precision bomb so powerful that it paralyzes the enemy with fear. The U.S. Air Force has such a weapon, and its time came as Operation Iraqi Freedom began. The designers were looking to demonstrate the power of their new super bomb. The U.S. needed to send a clear message to Baghdad.
It's 21,000 pounds, the biggest non-nuclear weapon in our arsenal, and sends a 10-ton message to Saddam Hussein.
It's a war about disarmament, we're told, and the Americans certainly have the weapons to achieve it.
Most of the bombs the U.S. military uses are roughly the size of a refrigerator. This is the size of a small truck.
The goal is to have the capabilities of the coalition so clear and so obvious that there is an enormous disincentive for the Iraqi military to fight.
Welcome to the Moab. In military circles, it's known as the mother of all bombs. Hi, Mom.
Moab is the largest guided weapon ever built. That is what makes it so destructive.
It's 30 feet long, and it's packed with over 18,000 pounds of high explosive.
There's the drop point.
The overall weapon weight is about 21,700 pounds.
That's 9.5 tons of sheer hell. The high explosive carries an exotic mix of tritunnel and fuel so powerful it can reduce a downtown area to dust. Its proper title is the Massive Ordnance Air Blast. And it's truly massive.
Something of that magnitude is just unbelievable.
The day it went off, it was kind of spectacular.
It's amazing.
This footage was shot from over 10 miles away, and the gas cloud throws up debris 10,000 feet into the air. The biggest conventional bomb ever built. It has the power to destroy an area of 9 city blocks. To put that incredible firepower into perspective, here's how other weapons stack up against Moab. Mortar rounds carry a charge of 2 pounds. Their effective blast radius to kill or shatter concrete is 2 yards. The howitzer round, with 20 pounds of high explosive, has a blast radius of 5 yards. A 2,000-pound bomb has a blast radius of 25 yards. That's the size of a city block. Before the arrival of Moab, the biggest conventional bomb was the notorious Blue 88, used in Vietnam. Packed with 15,000 pounds of explosive, it has a blast radius of 100 yards. But the Moab dwarfs everything. Carrying a lethal cocktail of high explosive, it has an effective blast area of 150 yards.
Roger, Kilo, test track, good job.
To find out more about the Moab, I went to Eglin Air Force Base in West Florida. Here's where the mother of all bombs was born.
What makes Moab so incredibly destructive?
Moab is the largest guided weapon ever built.
Fred Davis is the chief designer of the Moab.
Additionally, because of the precision guidance that it employs, we're able to put that large explosive dead on to a target.
Roger, Kilo, test track, good job.
The Moab is so destructive because it's designed to detonate above ground level, so the blast wave is thrown outwards and not into the ground. To achieve this, the Massive Ordnance Air Blast has been designed with some special features of its own. Mark Hunter, the man responsible for overseeing the Moab program, explains it all.
What makes it an airburst weapon?
When the fuses hit the ground, fuse train starts up these extenders and into the main cavity where the explosive is. So what's going to happen is the main charge here will go off before it actually impacts the ground.
And what kind of damage does an airburst do versus a ground burst?
What you're not doing is you're not digging the hole and you're not throwing up debris. What you're doing is you're causing a blast to start up about 3 feet off the ground and go out from there.
And that shockwave is one of the most valuable components about why the Moab is so effective.
That shockwave is the primary kill mechanism for the Moab, right?
Coming up, I find out what that shockwave can do to the human body. The Massive Ordnance Air Blast is the biggest conventional bomb ever created. At 21,000 pounds, it can flatten an area the size of 6 Super Bowl stadiums.
Moab is a blast munition, a massive ordnance air blast, so we're focusing on the blast effects versus fragmentation, which may be a design of other munitions.
To see the effects of a blast on the human body, we conducted a series of tests. Our willing victims were fiberglass mannequins. With a special high-speed camera, we captured the anatomy of a blast. Using a fuel-air explosive, the gas is dispersed to mix with the air. Then it's detonated, creating a massive fireball. The fireball creates the blast wave that shatters everything in its path. Of course, all this happens within a few milliseconds. Filmed at normal speed, our mannequin is shredded in the blink of an eye. This is how the Moab works. It's designed to produce the biggest blast wave ever created from a non-nuclear bomb. To deliver the world's biggest bomb, you're going to need a very big airplane. Something like the C-130.
C-130 is a big plane.
Very big plane.
They call it the Hercules.
So it's fitting, and the mother of all bombs goes to the Hercules.
That's great.
Basically what's going to happen is, off a C-130, much like this one, the ramps will drop down, there's a parachute that's held right up in this area here, it'll be drop out, the wind will catch the parachute, and the parachute will extract the Moab and the platform right out the back. When it comes out of that airplane, it's going to hit a precise spot. So there's a GPS receiver on board, there's an inertial navigation system on board, and a flight control computer. Basically, those are the smarts, if you will.
The Moab is fitted with lattice fins at the rear. They're linked to the Moab's own GPS system, which moves the fin, steering it to the target. It all adds up to the most lethal conventional bomb ever made. No wonder the Moab strikes fear into the hearts of the enemy. The Moab was created for one reason. It was a bomb designed to intimidate. And the target was Iraq. On the 12th of March, 3 days after the invasion of Iraq, the Moab was tested at a site 30 miles west of Eglin, Florida. This is footage from the actual test. It's the first time in history that a conventional bomb of this size had been dropped. The question is, would it work? Soaring silently through the sky, the Moab guides itself onto the target.
There's the drop point. Face your cleared out. Face right here. Under to a press shot. Good job.
Bob Hastings, a seasoned weapon designer, witnessed the test.
I went to my first MOAB test down at Eglin Air Force Base, and it was impressive. We were miles away, and you heard that thunderous boom.
30 miles beyond the test site, residents of Maskin also heard the blast.
I was sitting in my house, and I could feel the vibration.
Right, exactly. I live about 4 blocks from here, and I felt the same thing. Something of that magnitude is just unbelievable.
It shatters windows, or it shakes the building. Like, I live in a trailer, so I feel it a lot.
It's just that. It's the mother of all bombs.
3 days later, the Iraqis surrendered. The Moab had played its part in Saddam's downfall without ever being used.
Moab, it's not just a bomb. It's a psychological weapon. It applies pressure, not so much from its explosive blast. Its very presence acts as a deterrent from an enemy ever taking up arms in the first place.